was boot camp
Okay.
at work, and then things were going really well. I was motivated, and then I had a stress fracture because, again, wasn't really training, but decided I'd do some races. And then I got sick out of the blue. It was my birthday. I wasn't feeling well at dinner. I'd gone for a swim. I was swimming a mile that morning. I thought that would be a fun way to celebrate my birthday. I went to work. Towards the middle of the day, I started to not feel so well. My throat was hurting, but I only had dinner. I had dinner plans with my parents and my family. So I showed up. I took some medicine, popped some Tylenol, some steak, some salad, some wine, birthday cake, and when I woke up the next morning, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
My throat had swollen up on the side. I went to the doctor. They said I had strep with complications of the flu on top of it. And they sent me home with medicine. And the next day, my throat had still no improvement. I felt the worst I've ever felt in my entire life. And by that night, I was in the ICU, emergency surgery on a ventilator.
Wow. So in less than a day, you went from my throat is sore to I'm in ICU.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, what was that like? I mean, how long were you in the hospital? I mean, was it, life or death? I mean, what are we talking here?
Yeah, it was life or death. If I had not gone to the hospital and gone to sleep, I would have died in my sleep that night.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow. You don't think of getting a sore throat and dying in your sleep, right? So how long were you in the hospital?
I was hospitalized for a total of 4 days.
Okay.
I was in the ICU for 2, so I had about a day of intake and then a day of discharge at the end. But I was on the vent for 2 days.
So what was that recovery like? What was that like coming back from that?
I actually had 2 additional surgeries following that, and speech therapy because I had no voice. So all of the damage from my throat was done predominantly to my vocal cords. So I had to go back in and have subsequent surgeries. The last one being, 4 months after the fact. I was still having issues and being placed on bed rest and still working with therapists. So it was a pretty enduring process. For sure.
So you're a new mom, right? You got new jobs. You got no throat. You're on death's door, and from that, you come out of that 4 months later or 5 months later, and you decide, what was the time period? It was like 4 or 5 months, right? You're like, I think I want to do an Ironman, right? So you hadn't finished the half Ironman. You failed twice. You almost died, and then you decide, you know what? Let's do this full Ironman, right? So what was that like? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, the people at my job, Jill and Leslie,
Yep.
They have both done Ironman, and I've gone out, I've seen them, they're just really inspiring people.
So and I hate to cut you off, but 'cause I remember Leslie, right? I've seen pictures, images, and watching her on the app. There was nothing about her run, the end of the race, right, that made me want to do an Ironman. I was watching her and seeing the things in her face and her whatever, and then hearing the stories later on. And all I could think of is, I never want to do that in my life. And you are inspired. That's amazing. That's a beautiful story. Continue, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they just really made me think that things, maybe it is possible.
Okay.
Because before, I'd only dabbled with the half Ironmans because, and they've had so far been impossible. But maybe this could be something, I was coming out of it. I really wanted to come out stronger. I had more confidence in myself. I'd been through this whole ordeal and it hadn't killed me yet.
Right.
So I thought that I could move forward.
Okay, awesome. So that's when we started working together, right? So I remember Leslie's like, hey, you remember that Robin chick? And I was like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. She's like, the one that was in the hospital. I was like, oh yeah, what happened to her? She's probably gonna call you. She's gonna do an Ironman. I was like, okay, that sounds good. And so she called me and we started training together, right? Started working up a plan, right? It was about a year, right? Total was the training period, right? That you had about 12 months when you wanted to do it, or just under that, I think. And I was like, well, here's what we need to do, right? And I'm sure when you heard this, you were really excited. I was like, at least at the halfway point, we need to do a half Ironman, right? So I didn't know any of this backstory, right? So hearing this backstory now, I'm sure when I told you this, you were like, oh my God, here we go again, right? But you signed up for a half Ironman in Galveston, and didn't get to happen. So we did our simulation. So So we're on the day now. So you've got 4 months of training under your belt or so, right? You're doing this event in June when you don't want to do it, right? The only way worse would have been in August, right? So, but you're doing this thing in June, and it happened. I feel like that was the hottest day of the year up to that point, right? That was like we'd had some pretty nice days, and then that Saturday was like, hey, here's summer, right? Yeah. So you're doing this event, you make it to the swim, you make it to the bike, you know, you're starting to feel the fatigue a bit, right? And here comes the dreaded run, right? So let's talk about the run. You know, what happened? How did it go? How did you feel? You know, what was the deal? The good thing is you weren't alone, right? So how did that go?
I mean, it didn't really go. It kind of like slunk along.
Okay.
Snail's pace. It was hot. I wanted so badly to just run. I mean, more than anything, I think even I could explain to y'all when y'all were running with me, like
there was a lot of explaining going on.
I wanted to run, and I had felt really confident in my training runs and the brick workouts that I had done. That I felt pretty good coming off the bike, but that day I just didn't.
Okay, so take us through the run. You know, what was the mileage like? Did you make it through it? Did you finish? I mean, what the heck?
There was a lot of walking.
Okay.
A lot of walking. We walked the entire first half.
Okay.
And then I think I just started feeling sorry for myself, and that kind of made me angry that, you know, I was back in this position again. And I decided to do like, let's just see what I can, right? So I was like, well, we'll gut out a 1-1. And so I tried to walk for a minute, run for a minute. And the next 3 miles passed a little faster.
Yeah.
And then having the aid station, you know, towards mile 10 helped kind of rejuvenate it. But, you know, I think you were excited. We're like, woohoo, 5K to go. And that just was like a nail on the coffin for me. That I was like, that is so far right now. It's like, I did not have a 5K in me at that point. Everything was starting to hurt. The legs were starting to cramp by that point. It was just miserable.
Yeah. But even though it was miserable, you made it, right? You finished the event, you finished the race, you made it in time, right? You didn't necessarily hit your overall goal, right, that you wanted to do, but it was a very aggressive goal, right? But you finished under the time limit, and you finished it in better shape than you ever finished even 2/3 of an event before, right? The 2/3 version, right? So like the weeks leading out, I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, right? The weeks leading after your last 2 attempts, right, weren't great weeks, right? You were hurting a little bit, right? You were really tired, but then I texted you, I think, on Sunday and Monday, and what was your response?
Yeah, so Sunday was, but Saturday night was probably the worst.
Okay.
Just muscle spasms.
The day of the event, yeah. Right? Okay.
The next day, I walked the dogs. Took them out for their, the little half-mile jaunt, and we went to the grocery store. And it was fun. It was Sunday at Robi's house.
Yeah. Awesome. So you finished, right? You finished your 70.3. The thing that's kind of been like this albatross, right? Or this great white whale that you could never catch, right? You finally got it done, right? And some things to me, and I don't know if it stood out to you, but some things to me that kind of really stand out is that this time, and I know you had people that were there, right, that came to your events, but this time you didn't do it alone, really, right? You didn't train alone, right, for the most part. We worked together. You had someone to ride with. Someone convinced you to join a running group and forced you to run with people, right? Whoever that guy is, making these friendships, making these connections, right? And so, to me, and this has been something for me personally, has always been a thing, is that you're good by yourself, right? And you're motivated, right? And you're disciplined and you push yourself. But if you have that personality, I feel like when you do it with other people, it just takes you to another level, right? Whether it's your confidence, whether it's the accountability portion of it, right? I don't know what it is specifically, and I think it's probably different for everyone, but I think that can be a huge difference, right, in between failure and success, right? Is knowing that we're not meant to do this kind of stuff, this life by ourselves, right? We're meant to do it together, right? With one another. We make each other stronger, right? We make each other better. So that was just a side note. I'm sorry, I digress. But so we're just a few months away, right? So how do you feel? You finish your 70.3, and 2 days later I say, okay, now we gotta get ready for an Ironman, right? What was that like?
It was like, yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
You know, I know what I need to work on. I bought that cookbook to kind of change my nutrition.
Okay.
Focusing more on hydration. I think they say like hydration in the bottle and fuel in your pocket. So you put your nutrition in your back. So really trying to change that aspect of it, because I think that that's a real big driving force for why I continue to struggle.
Right.
And then amping up the mileage, which obviously I got into this because I didn't like running.
Yeah.
So who's surprised that the run is going to be
the hardest part
for me?
Right. Okay. So so I'm excited. I'm really excited for you. I'm very proud that you did this, because I mean, to me personally, what you did doing this event, right? Because usually most of these Ironman or half Ironman, there's thousands of people, right? You've got hundreds of competitors. You've got all of their support staff and all their, people cheering them on. Not to mention people that are just there to come see the event, plus volunteers, right? You got all this. You got 20 aid stations all over the place, right? So you've got non-stop support, right? And you basically went out on a Saturday, right, and did this event for the most part, right? You didn't do it by yourself, right? You had a small support staff, but you didn't have all that ancillary adrenaline rush, right? And that makes a huge difference a lot of times, right? So being able to do that, what kind of confidence booster was that? What kind of did that amp you up and man, I'm gonna crush this Ironman?
Yeah, it did, because then when we looked back and I was like, oh, well, if I take out the time that I stopped, for all the lights,
right.
If I take out the longer transition because I'm conversing with people and, we're talking and it's not like, let's race.
Right.
It was actually I can do this. It was, I knew going into that day that this was going to happen. There was no option to quit. It was just, how long is it going to take?
Right.
But then when I saw, I was like, oh no, this could have been a legitimate race time for me. I mean, that really kind of amped me up. And again, I didn't hit my goal target, my time, but I had never done one before. So my goal was still just to finish.
Right, that's always your goal, right, when you first do it. So that's awesome. So so I'm excited to see, how it's going to go. Hopefully, Corona won't cancel the race for you, right? You'll actually get to do it in September.
I'm not doing a simulation Ironman.
I won't make you do a simulation Ironman. Maybe. We'll see. But hopefully you'll get to do it, right? And so we'll have to get you back and see how that went, see how the whole thing went. But before we shut this down, what do you feel like what are some of the biggest things over, say, the last 7 years, from your beginning journey, right, when you first decided you wanted to try to tackle this huge thing, right? And 7 years is a long time to have a goal and finally, because most people would have given up, right? So I know you're kind of laughing, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it took forever.
It sounds really bad.
It sounds bad, right? But most people would have quit, right? Most people would not have persevered and said, you know what, I'm gonna keep going, or I'm gonna try until I get this, right? And to me, that actually says more to the character of someone, or the learning process, is that, you know what, just because I failed once doesn't mean it's over, right? Or just because I failed twice doesn't mean, just because I almost died doesn't mean it's over, right? So it's only a failure, right? It's only over when you quit, when you stop trying, right? So, what do you feel like are maybe a couple of the things that you've learned, over, say, the last 7 years building up to this, right? That, what are some of the takeaways? Or maybe some things that you could share with somebody, that maybe have a similar goal, or maybe it's a 5K, who knows, right? For some people, a 5K, it's a big deal, right?
It could be their Ironman.
It could be their Ironman very easily, right? And we don't belittle anything because of a distance, because before you were half Iron lady, man, whatever, you had to do a half marathon, right? Or you had to do a 10K, you had to do a 5K, and each one of those things were tough, right, to get to that place, right? So it's rarely ever just like, oh yeah, that was a breeze, right? So what were some things, some takeaways? What are some big takeaways, learning experiences, whatever, that you say over the last 7 years, strictly about this event?
I think the biggest one is to just have confidence in yourself. I mean, to your point, I never really thought about it. 7 years is a long time to have a goal. But I never once did I say, oh, but I can't do it. I just didn't.
So we don't say, Can't. That's a bad word, right? Okay. There is no can't. Can't never did anything. Okay, keep going.
I mean, I think that was really the driving factor is always in the back of my mind. This is something I can do. This is something I should be able to do. And I didn't want to like belittle the distance, not give it the respect that it deserves.
Sure.
But just really trying to stay confident in that. It was something I felt, again, I suck at running, but I'm not that bad at swimming, and I'm Dutch, so I feel like I can just bike, right? Like, it's supposed to be in my genes.
Okay.
It was something that I'm equipped to do. My body, might not be the perfect triathlete body, but I have built up the ability to do these amazing, not amazing, but these things that most people don't do or don't consider or, don't push themselves to do. But I knew I could do it. I just needed to find the confidence in myself to be able to go forward.
Awesome. So thank you so much for kind of sharing your story with us. Thank you for coming in, taking your day. So thanks guys for watching today. If you enjoyed this, make sure you give us a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, I don't know how in the world you haven't done so, but if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to Running with James. And keep on the lookout for Robbie. So we've got just a few months before she does this Ironman. You can follow My BC Fit on Instagram and Facebook, and I guarantee you'll see her on there because when it happens, I'm gonna blow up the interwebs with Robbie's face all over the place because it's an amazing thing that she's doing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sharing your time with us and sharing your story. Right? Sometimes that can be difficult, right? But if anything, guys, I think. Like she said, right, that we're capable of so much, right? And I think a lot of times we limit ourselves for whatever reason, right? Because of whatever limitations we feel like we have, or maybe how we came up, or our weight, or our height, right? Or our gender, whatever it may be. Sometimes I feel like we limit ourselves. And we are capable of so many things. God created us so amazing. This human body is an amazing thing. And when you take care of it, right, when you use it for what it was made for, you can do some outstanding and amazing things. So I encourage you guys, challenge yourself to do something, that you've never done before. Set a goal, and then get some people, get a group of people to help you along the way, right? To support you. Having a support structure is so amazing. Whether it's a run group, whether it's a coach, whether it's a gym, whatever it may be, find a community that you can become a part of and get to wherever it is that you want to go, whatever that goal is. So once again, Robbie, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it so very, very much. I know everyone out there in YouTube land, in the interwebs, really does appreciate it. And so remember, guys, I think if you take anything away from this, and maybe this is just me because it's Running with James, but if you take anything away from this, when you change your mind, you can change your life. This connects with so many different parts of your life. It's not about running a distance. It's not about becoming an Ironman or a half Ironman, whatever it is. It's about learning that when you persevere, right, when you're willing to put in the effort, anything is possible, right? And that just connects to so many different parts of your life, your family, your job, whatever it may be. So thanks for coming in today, guys. You're amazing. We're out. Keep it real. I got nothing else.